Hey, good morning, everybody. Matt, good morning. And good morning, Ray, our special guest from OIT. Ray, thanks a lot for joining us
Morning.
on our live stream, a weekly live stream. This is episode 99. Very exciting. We're super psyched. Thank you, Simon, for jumping in. And just want to say thanks to our regular viewers. Unfortunately, I have to do a little hosting duty today. Our usual host, Megan, is out of the office. So you guys get me. I don't know how good a job I'll do. She does a great job. So big shoes to fill. And just a little bit about us. Thank you, everyone who watches our regular live stream every week on Thursdays at 10:30. It's on YouTube, LinkedIn. We're Valiant Technology. We're an IT managed service provider located in New York. We work across the country, though. And this is, as I said, this is a weekly thing we do. And we're on Twitter. We're on all these different formats and platforms. So before we get in, I said thanks a lot, Ray, and thanks a lot for our viewers. And today is really kind of like a little bit more of an introspective year-end kind of episode. We're looking at how did you get into IT? How do you get into IT? It's kind of like one of those jobs that I think a lot of folks, or careers, I should say, that people fall into, or kind of don't necessarily start from set out to do it. So I think that it's some interesting ways to look at it. So I think that you start, when you're young, at one point in your life, you get interested in technology, you like working on it, and then you sort of like get into it, and now you have it. And so now, how do you actually like work in it? How do you? What helped us? Kind of technology folks who've been doing this for a long time. And so I'm going to kick it off with I'm going to mix it up a little bit from our thing. So let me go first. I'm going to ask Ray, our guest. Ray, how did you get into this game?
So I went the normal route, meaning I didn't do the school and then go get a job. The normal route for me being I was in Big Brothers and Big Sisters. I was a
Oh
little
wow,
when I was 7, 8 years old, something like that. My big brother was an IBM engineer, and he had a contract with Eckerd Drugs at the times. And yes, for those hearing, what's Eckerd Drugs? It's like CVS, but for older people.
That's where you get chia pets. Yeah, that's where the chia pets come from.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So so they had a contract with Eckerd Drugs working on the pharmacies, the satellite comms, the AS400s that were running the pharmacies at the time, and he'd take me out, and plus they had the POS machines,
Right.
the point of sale machines, working on those. There were a bunch of old NEC stuff, and so he'd take me out a couple times a week, and we'd go service that stuff, and I'd be pulling out daughter boards and stuff I had no business touching when I was 7 or 8 years old. And look, shiny metal thing. You're not supposed to touch capacitors. Well, I just did it.
Yeah.
So, and that was the start. And then, of course, like every IT person on the planet, he had a side gig doing consulting because this was early '90s, doing consulting for business people and business contacts. So he'd take me to those jobs too, and got to build my first 286 SX back then, with a turbo button to 16 megahertz. And and that was my start. And then my family having their own businesses, being serial entrepreneurs themselves, they had a bunch of colleagues that had computers, right? They would go get that $2,000, $2,500 IBM Aptiva from Office Depot or whatever, or white boxes, because back then everything was a white
Everything's
box.
a white box. PC USA. Was it? Was
Exactly.
It
it
was
around
either
that?
Comp USA or
Comp USA.
And hold on, let's just
Comp
correct you
USA.
on that one because the executive machines back then were the Acers that were black. Remember those?
Yes.
Mid
Oh,
'90s.
yeah.
Fancy. And Toshiba
It's,
laptops, the satellite laptops were the hotness back
Yes.
then. But anyway,
No, I mean,
digress.
just like the Motorola phones, right? They were like thick, and you could like use them for self-defense if you needed to.
Yes.
And so my father said, "Oh well, my son knows a little bit about the computers," and I was there, with the 8 discs installing Windows 3.1 and doing all that fun
Right.
stuff and terminating Token Ring, and that was my start. I was legitimately doing IT consulting at like 9 years old.
But here's a pile of stuff. Get going. That's great,
Yeah,
though.
exactly.
And from there, was it just kind of like a natural, even while you're in school, like study in school, or just kind of study something different?
So I did. I have always created businesses. I did the studies afterward as personal goal.
Right.
Especially parent of 2 children. I didn't want them to have any excuses not to do it. So, I did community college for a while and really majorly bombed that one because I was an idiot. Not that I'm not an idiot now, but I was more of an idiot back then, I think.
It's all about attention span at the time, right? Like how much attention.
Right, exactly. It's hard to juggle, dating life and school and gaming and school, and obviously the wrong priorities were made. So did that, and I did the DeVry route, and I did eventually go to school and finish up there, but it was all after the fact. It was all personal goals. It was more about learning and figuring stuff out. And George, Matt, I know you guys have destroyed your fair share of motherboards, just like I have.
I did it definitely. I did it a couple months ago. I put in a new processor, and I bent the pins in the process, and my son saw me fully lose my mind. Like he saw the full meltdown, like the flame, and I had to go back to Micro Center and buy another processor. So.
Is that not like the most terrifying thing when you're putting that proc like on the bed, and and I don't care if the pins are on the proc or the pins are on the bed, it doesn't matter. They haven't made this any better.
No.
The one thing that was better was what was it? The Pentium 2 chipset. There was the cartridge
and the slot A's. From
yes,
right.
Oh man,
it was like
you know what I mean?
Nintendo cartridge. They were perfect, and
they were great.
I destroyed an old 333 megahertz Celeron processor. If you guys remember those, the ones you could overclock like 11 or 15 times to go nuts with them. I accidentally stepped on it, and I still have the pattern of the pins on my foot.
Its dying breath, it etched you.
That was it.
It marked you.
And that's the thing. Like I was building when COVID stuff started. Like I built my home office that I'm in now, and I was like, you know what? I haven't built a PC in like 10 years. Let me build a PC, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be fun. I'll get on Call of Duty for like 2 seconds and get off. Not that I ever have the chance to game, but like I'll build a gaming PC, and it's all RGB because I'm an older 12-year-old with adult money, and even my dims like have RGB like glowing. It is horrible. But the whole thing, and then as I'm putting it together, I have a Ryzen 9, and as I'm putting it on, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember why I stopped doing this.
Yeah. Same thing, Ray. I literally had the same thing over building a gaming rig and for home and work, that sort of thing. And then as I put it in, bent the pins, I literally threw the bent proc across the room. Got in the car. My wife's like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I'm good. I have to go back down to Micro Center to get another processor."
Yeah. Between that and the thermal paste, like you never really know if you did a good job.
It was a cooler. Anyway, we could talk about PC builds for hours, but that's great though. And so for you, a lot of it was like learning on the job and just kind of that natural interest of doing the work, kind of led to the studying and that sort of thing. And the formal education side of it was more like, hey, I can't just be a guy. I need to have that little kind of piece of paper. That's it.
It was more about, we have that, what do you call it? When you always feel like you're in that imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I have more than my fair share of like the Borland books and the really thick tomes of like, ASP.NET and, every O'Reilly thing ever printed ever, that kind of thing. And it's like, and I did that. I did whatever very few online courses were available at the time.
Right.
But you always feel like you don't know, like you're doing it your way, but you don't know if you're doing it the right way. Right.
Correct.
And it wasn't like there was a Reddit at the time. There wasn't like even Spiceworks in the early 90s.
There was nothing. There was nothing. It was like books.
There was nothing. It was whoever you knew, the very few people you knew, if there was a user group around, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I read the stories of like Jobs and Wozniak and like the South California computer groups and stuff like that. I'm like, there was nothing of that in Miami. Like that didn't exist.
Right.
And especially not for a 10-year-old or 15-year-old or 20-year-old.
You weren't really welcome at the group. Like, what's you doing here? So that's great.
So I did that, and I decided I wanted formal training, so I understood what I was doing. And thankfully, it wasn't too many mistakes, It could be worse. Like, apparently naming everything contoso.local was fine,
it's North winds. That's great. So Matt, how did you get into the game? How did you get started in this thing? And what was your kind of like 2 seconds? I know you talked many times about this, but
I've always been into technology. We talked a lot about that last week. And back in the fall of '99, I enrolled at Pace University for a degree in computer science, and wasn't really too sure if it was something that I wanted to do, but went for it. And I drove the school nuts. It's a good place, but I would never show my face around there again.
Are you like kind of like the shoplifting page, like, in the store, and like known offenders, like, don't let this man on campus?
In the doesn't know how to shut up kind of category there. Like
Shatty Matty.
I had two computer science courses in the first semester, and the same teacher both. He was like, "Don't show up. You're gonna pass. I just don't want to see you again." Right. And then the dean's like, "Okay, we're gonna put you in this course," and it was like an intro to Java. And I'm like, it feels so appropriate right now. I don't like Java. I don't want to be here. I just cracked the license for the IDE for all the students because I don't think they should be paying for it either. She was like, "All right, you passed. Get out." So I ended up with like a lot of credits very quickly because no one wanted me in their classes. And then I started thinking about other things like anthropology, which is something I've always been really interested in, still am. And, I kind of just said, you know what, I need to stop what I'm doing right now because I always wanted to be a pyrotechnician. That was always my thing. Chemistry, I was banned from my high school's chemistry lab after showing people the colors that flames turn when you throw minerals on them, and other things. So it was very, wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I come from a family with a lot of people in the arts and sciences, a lot of educators, principals, stuff like that. And I was spending some time in between semesters at my aunt's high school in Brooklyn at the time, just right down by where Pacific and Atlantic meet. And there was a tech teacher there that needed a hand for me and did a whole bunch of like RAM upgrades or something like that just to keep busy. And he goes, "Hey, this seems to be something you like to do, but it also seems like you need to get into it a little bit more before you decide what you want to do for school again." And I ended up getting a job at the National Foundation for Teaching Entrepreneurship. And that was really just going to be a short-term 6-month thing to figure out what it was that I wanted to do with myself.
Right.
And I worked there from February. I worked there from Valentine's Day, 2000 until June 25th, 2007.
Wow.
So what started out as, a 6-month, let's see what happens, turned into, going on and starting as the assistant to the CIO, him eventually leaving, another one coming in. That was a mess. I ended up taking over the entire department, working with, a lot of the development staff, development fundraising to get the resources we needed. We got, donors like Hewlett Packard and Microsoft and a lot of other great ones, which exposed me to a ton. I mean, I went and I got my certifications for MCSE in 2000 and 2003 at one time. And, it really, at that point, I realized that I kind of needed to figure out what I needed to do and needed to learn for myself. And, education's important to me, but I didn't think that being in the classroom was going to help at that point. I think it was going to be a little more discouraging because of the way I think and the way I approach things. And right. You both have known me long enough to know that I don't always think in the most orthodox ways. I like to make things explode and fall apart and then figure out how to put them back together.
You kind of do your own path. Yeah.
But the learning never ends. That's the one thing. You always got to be hungry to learn more. What's coming around the corner? What's going on right now that you want to jump on? But at the same time, try not to spread yourself too thin. That's definitely something I've done multiple times. And I also think that's kind of what motivated me to go onto the marketing side, George. That was a great opportunity you guys put in front of me, and I think it's worked out really well so far. Yep. And it's kind of ironic. I'm sitting here over the past few days kind of trying to think about what steps did I take? What kind of cool things happened? And a lot of memories came back. And I think it's ironic that in 2002, I was actually on a technology curriculum advisory board for New York City schools.
Right.
I was 21 years old at the time. And there's kids that are like 4, 5, 6 years younger than me right now. And I'm helping to try and figure out exactly how they are going to learn about technology and how they're going to embrace what's coming up and help them make their decisions. And that was pretty cool. And I think that was also another factor right there. You talk about things like imposter syndrome. When someone says, we want you to be a part of this group to help, direct other people, that you're on the right track. That's a big, big confidence boost right there. Sure. And sure. I think it's important to be able to have those types of milestones throughout a career as well to help keep you going. And it doesn't have to be getting onto boards and councils. It has to be the people that you work with appreciating the work that you do and knowing that they're supporting you just as you're supporting them.
Right, right.
I think I get my review next week, so I'm just getting you ready for it.
Yeah, you better be up here. Yeah.
Good timing.
That's good stuff. So I think, just if we can, That's great. And I talked earlier last stream about how I got into it. And for me, I was always very lucky. I worked in a great environment where they fostered learning. And I went to the NYU, adult education course, certificate course that really kind of launched my like thinking in it. And the other part that was really good. But that being said, I think if you're starting out, what do you guys think when you're talking to younger folks? What do you tell people? I know as kind of like I know Ray and I talk to a lot of our staff and talk to a lot of MSP owners. And I talk to a lot of people in the channel and community. I know I always do. What would you tell if someone came to you and said, "Hey, how do you guys? I just got this job as a level 1 service desk person at MSP. What do I do from here?" What do you tell people?
I mean, my thing is I'm always a huge fan of apprenticeships. And that's one of the things, I've talked about within SITSP and I've talked about on Reddit and everywhere else is, especially growing up in part of apprenticeships, right? The big thing. And then,
right.
Of course I'm biased, but my thing is learn from others. Yes, you can I'm a big fan of certifications. I sit on CompTIA boards and I'm absolutely all for that. I'm all about that. But the apprenticeships show you practical application, right? The education, the formal education, the certification shows you the theory, just like in college, just like anywhere else in school. Practical application comes out of, apprenticeship or working in it. So one of the things I encourage people, I sit on high school and college boards and advise them on technical programs, and we do internships. But one of the things I advise these young kids, and the older I get, everybody's younger, but
yes.
I advise these young kids, spend the time, do the apprenticeships, do the, ask for internships, there's plenty of paid internships or unpaid. Yeah. And if you're in a job already, you're working, be upfront with your employer and say, what's the career path here? What can we work together? That's something we set for every one of our staff when they come in. We talk about it at hiring, and then we work on it quarterly with every single staff member. Your employer should be very clear about what the forward path is. If your employer doesn't have a path for you, they probably don't have a path for their own business. That's a red flag.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you owe it to yourself to know what you're going to be doing 5 or 10 or 15 years from now.
Correct. And I think it really, a lot of it has to do with what do you like working on? And I think it will change over time to some degree, but if you have an interest, like, I always laugh, like, I'm very much an accidental person in this career. And for me, at least, I wanted to be an academic, and I kind of ended up doing this, and I love it. Every day I get out of bed, even the bad days are good days, if that makes sense. But I think that it's like, but your interest will change over time. But that being said, I think it's a really great idea of talking to, like, hey, I like working on this. How can I get deeper into this thing? How does this work? Or can I spend extra time and work on that project when we're senior folks? I mean, now I know when I started out, that was the thing I always did. I was like, hey, you mind if I stick around and just hang around? And sometimes that can help.
Absolutely. And that helps you in your career too. The employer will notice that you're passionate about something, you're willing to put in the work, and the better employers will say, okay, well, we need to put this person going forward. I'm the network engineer. I have a CCIE. I'm the network engineer that hates phones. So, owning a phone company absolutely makes sense, right? So it's like, your career never becomes what you thought it was going to be.
100%.
But being open to those experiences and trying things out, the last thing you want to do is spend 20 years preparing for something, and then you get there and you hate it. Experiences are so important.
That's like whenever you meet some people, it always seems to be a certain thing that they're either developers or accounting or something. Lawyers particularly, they seem to always particularly hate being the job they do, and you want to avoid that if you can. But you took like that technical know-how from the CCIE, applied it to the business, and that's a real passion, I think. The passion is running the business, building something.
Passion's a big part of it, and I think that when you're just starting out in IT, you got to figure out what interests you. There are so many places to be. I always try to suggest that people start off as generalists. Just a little bit of every single thing, and then eventually something's going to click. There's going to be that spark that's going to get you excited, whether it's cybersecurity or development or dealing with infrastructure or application, whatever it is. There's going to be something that you'll eventually find, but you do need to kind of, you got to treat it like a buffet table. You load this, you load that on your plate, you look down, you figure out what it is that you really love, and that's what you order next time. And again, learning relevant skills and gaining experience is a huge part of this. If you've got some friends that do this stuff for a living, start asking them, start really hit them with questions, because there's going to be a really good chance that they're going to get to the point where you're going to have to tell them to shut up, because having conversations like this doesn't always happen in that often, at least, with me. And I know that there are days where people are like, okay, it's 3 hours. Thank you. I'm good. I don't need any more of this. But it's you ask the questions and you tell the stories and you share anecdotes and the wins and the losses, like talk about the day I got electrocuted in my computer room. Those are things that are going to happen, well, hopefully not to anyone here, and obviously not any customers of Valiant or Orange.
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure we've all been electrocuted at some point in time.
You tell those stories, you get a couple of laughs, you get more questions, people start getting interested, and I think that helps people figure out exactly what it is where they want to go to start. The certifications, I think, are great. I think they're great to show prospective employers that you're serious about what you want to do. It's like, I have this base level of understanding. I've invested a certain amount because this is what I want. That's why I want to be with you guys. And I know they definitely helped me over the years.
Yeah. Well, and I think they help with once again, go back to what Ray said earlier. It goes back to combating your own imposter syndrome, or how
Absolutely.
much. I think everyone has that inside them, unless if you're like a, degenerate narcissist. But you generally, and even they have it, they just happen to do it in a different way. It's just hide it. But I think that's, the certs are great.
And let's just quickly, because we only have a few minutes, because you guys have another event to get to in a little while. And
I was just messaging you on that.
That IT Festivus is starting in just a little bit, so we want to wrap up. And I think that just quickly, let's talk about transitioning into IT from another career, because I kind of did the reverse. And one thing I found is that the best thing you could do is look at your current skill set and what you've done in the past, and figure out what you can do to leverage that to get into IT. Because there are so many soft skills that are important. Having really great documentation skills, communication skills, being able to manage projects. A lot of these skills apply to many different professions. And that's a foot in the door. If someone's looking for a project manager and it's not going to directly expose you to technology, but it's something that you can help out with, that's how you start gaining that experience and seeing what it is that you like. So I think don't expect to sit down in front of a network cabinet day one or be, doing something like that. Figure out what's going to allow for a gradual transition from what you're doing now to what you want to be doing.
Also, I think it's also good, even if you're taking a higher level role, sometimes it's good to start a little bit, at least at some point, do some of the lower level work to understand on the ground level how it all functions. Because I think if you're only working on the high level stuff, you just won't know what's happening. It's very hard to see it from the perspective of the end users, of other business owners. As that we find, I see that a lot. When people want to come in and I don't I want to be a security admin, but you never rolled out a network, or you never even installed a UPS, so you wouldn't even know what that entails. So you know what it is, but going back to the internship thing, sometimes you have to do the thing to really understand the thing.
Hey, my very first boss threw a spool of Cat 5 cable in front of me and was like, "You're going to make as many 3-foot patch cables as you can today." I had to figure out the ordering of the wires and the whole deal. And by the time the day was over, I had all these. My fingers were bloody, But it was sort of like that. I appreciate this, and now I'm going to be so much happier when I could just go get some packaged ones from down the street.
It's true. So that's good stuff. So, all right, we're going to wrap it up because we have to get ready for this next thing. We're really excited about the Festivus with our Ninja. We're going to work with them. It's going to be great. I said, if you're interested in technology, if you're actually interested in even talking to someone, just reach out to us on our if you want to throw up there the stream, website or a stream address. We'll answer questions, and we guys know what is really important for us, and we want to make sure people feel comfortable even if they're curious. And so just to wrap it up, next week is our 100th live stream. Considering that it kind of came out of the pandemic, what are we going to do now? It's really exciting, and it's become a really core part of our business and our operations and our communications to our customers and prospective customers. Really excited to do it. So check it out. And Ray, thank you so much for joining us. We always love the company and insight. You have such a great way of going about it and representing.
Always fun being on. Always fun being on, man. I appreciate it. And I'll see you in a few minutes.
See you in a couple minutes. All right. Thanks, everyone. Right. And everyone, have a great week and see you on the 23rd. Thanks a lot. Bye now.
See you guys soon. Bye-bye.